Thank you for joining us this evening for this edition of the Greater Reading Young Professionals on BCTV. The band you just saw is our very own Get a Grip band. The band is composed of Grip members Jim Kurtz, Mike Simmons, Dawn Value, and Charles Wainio. The Greater Reading Young Professionals, also known as GRIP, was established to provide a forum to attract, engage, and retain young professionals in the Greater Reading region. The group is supported by the Greater Reading Chamber of Commerce and Industry and is comprised primarily of young professionals between the ages of 21 and 45 in the Greater Reading area. In keeping with GRIP's mission, we decided to produce a television program created for young professionals, by young professionals, that allows us to discuss the topics, concerns, and passions that are relevant in the lives of young adults living in the Greater Reading area. GRIP provides a wide range of benefits, including monthly networking events and educational sessions. I encourage you to get involved and attend one of our upcoming events. For more information, you can check out our website. It's www.greaterreadingyp.org. Now, coming up later in the show, we have real estate agent Jamie Perez, who will be giving advice on things you should consider when purchasing a home. He will also be taking calls from viewers, so be sure to call in to 610-378-0426. Now, up next, we have Leslie Simone with the news.
On the heels of the Pennsylvania Renewable Energy and Sustainable Living Festival this weekend, momentum keeps building for the virtues of clean, green energy in Pennsylvania. 250 businesses and residences have already applied and been approved for Pennsylvania's Sunshine Solar program. $100 million has been set aside to help with solar installations, as the government has mandated that a certain percentage of energy come from alternative sources. So it's seeking an unparalleled return on investment, or you're committed to sustainability, or both. Act quickly, because this first round of rebates and incentives are the most lucrative. In federal news, the FCC chairman, Julius Genachevsky, announced yesterday at the Brookings Institute the expansion of net neutrality rules. The new regulations are intended to preserve and maintain open and robust Internet and a free-flowing exchange of ideas. Currently, Internet providers have been allowed to either restrict or slow their competitors' content, obviously not leading to that open forum. On the week of Pennsylvania's one-year anniversary of the Clean Indoor Air Act taking effect, 2 studies were released from the American College of Cardiology and Circulation magazines reporting that heart gain, or the number of lives spared as a result of smoking bans, has actually increased 30%. Originally, organizations and the public thought that only 10%, there was a 10% increase when smoking bans took effect. So our hearts and lungs thank you, Pennsylvania, for the smoking ban. So next we're going to discuss disc golf. Many of you are familiar with traditional golf, but disc golf is actually a young, fun, fresh, economical alternative to your traditional 18 holes.
Disc golf, also known as frisbee golf, is very similar to normal golf, I'm sure you've seen. Except instead of using a golf club, you're using frisbees like these. Instead of shooting for a little hole in the ground, you're shooting for a basket like that. It's a fast-growing sport, especially in this local area, and it's very inexpensive to start out with. These frisbees cost anywhere from $10 to $20, and you really only need 1 or 2 to start out with. A disc golf disc is much smaller than a normal frisbee you'd throw at the beach with your friends. It goes much farther than a normal frisbee. It's easier to throw. And if you look at the edge, you can see it's pointy. You don't want to catch the disc golf disc because it will hurt you. The rules for disc golf are very similar to normal golf. Play starts with teeing off. Players take turns teeing off in whatever order they like on the first hole. Play proceeds in the order of farthest distance from the pin, which is also another name for the basket. You throw it to the basket. When you get closer than 30 feet, you need to start marking your discs with a little marker frisbee. There are also hazards involved in disc golf, just like normal golf, although there's not usually sand traps unless you're playing at the beach. There's rivers, there's buildings, there's trees. There's generally no out of bounds in disc golf. There's only two conditions where you're going to have out of bounds. The first is if your frisbee is completely submerged underwater. Then you need to get the frisbee out of the water, put it back at the spot where it crossed out of bounds, and play from there with a penalty stroke. The other case for a penalty stroke is, say your frisbee lands in a tree. Now, if the frisbee is in a tree low from the ground, you're fine. But if the frisbee ends up lying higher than 2 meters off the ground, you need to take a penalty stroke and play the frisbee directly down from where it stands. There's three main types of discs that are used in disc golf. The first is a driver. You can tell a driver by the sharp edge. Second is a mid-range. Mid-ranges look a little bit more like a normal frisbee. You can see the edge is a little rounder. You can catch this one without being scared. You don't want to catch a driver because it'll hurt you. And then finally you get down to putters. This putter is a little different than most because it has a stepped edge. As the edge of the disc gets sharper, the farther you'll be able to throw it. The best method for a beginner to use when starting to play disc golf is the same method they would use to throw a normal frisbee. Hold the top with your thumb, grip your fingers around the bottom edge, hold back with your arms straight, and release, flicking your wrist at the end. The spin on the frisbee is what really gives it the distance. So when you first start, think about spinning the frisbee. Don't worry about throwing it far. Think about the spin, and the distance will come. There are two local courses in Berks County. The first is at French Creek State Park, and the second is at Earl Township Community Park. There are also upwards of 20 other courses within an hour drive of Berks County. This area is really one of the best in the country for frisbee golf.
That's our sports segment, Grip Style. And now back here in the studio, we have real estate agent Jamie Perez giving you some expert advice on things you need to know when purchasing a home. Jamie?
Thanks, Charmaine. As Charmaine had mentioned, my name is Jamie Perez. I'm a real estate agent, and I'm here with my happy homeowners, Roberto and Lily, who just recently purchased a home. And they are here to share in their experience in what it was like and what it's like to be new first-time homeowners. So first and foremost, how does it feel to be homeowners?
Well, Jamie, it feels great. It's been a long-term goal of ours to own our own home, and we finally got the chance a few days ago, actually. It was a great opportunity because of the $8,000 tax credit, and we were able to take advantage of that tax credit. As a first-time homeowner, it's something that you want to accomplish, and we were able to do that.
How about that great financing terms you got?
You can't beat that. You seriously can't beat that. Lily and I made out completely from that deal.
Sure,
so we thank you completely.
And Lily, where did you start the home search? How'd you go about, becoming a homeowner, I guess?
We started looking online about 6 months ago and looking at properties, and then we were referred to you by a friend of ours who recently just purchased a home as well.
Wow, well, I'll tell you, I appreciate the opportunity, and I'm glad that we were able to get it done for you. In today's segment, we'd like to go through the pros and cons, and we'll use two properties that I showed you as examples. You may recall the first. It was a semi-detached home in Governor Mifflin School District. It had 3 bedrooms, 1 bath, and it also had an attached garage that had access through the basement, which kind of took away a little bit from the yard, but overall I thought the house matched your criteria. So, Berto, how did you feel about that property?
Well, we were looking for a house that had some sort of a backyard, and in this case the garage took away from that. It was not something that we were interested in due to that. we would like to host some small parties. We couldn't with this.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Lily? What did you think about that house?
I didn't like the fact that it didn't have a yard and it didn't have any closets. So we needed closets.
That's understandable. Closets are important, as well as having a nice yard to invite friends over. And I'd like to go into the second property, that the one that you guys actually ended up buying. The house was a brick semi-detached house. It was in Wilson School District. It had 3 bedrooms, large garage, and as Berto's going to tell you, it had plenty of hardwood floors.
Well, you're right, Jamie. I can remember the day that you showed us that house. As soon as you opened the front door, we saw hardwood floors for miles, and that was, of course, the reason that we bid on it. Plus, it was in the Wilson School District, something that we were interested in as well. Did have a large detached garage. You would think that would take away from the backyard, but not in this case. We have 2-car detached garage and also a decent-sized yard for those cookouts in the summertime.
Great. And Lily, what did you think about that house?
I liked that it had the custom kitchen, which is really nice, and the hardwood floors was nice. But being in the Wilson School District was a major plus, and going with that house too.
Sure. Well, I'm glad you guys found a place to call your own, and I'm also glad that I was able to be a part of your home buying process.
Thank you.
Is there anything that you would like to comment on as far as the process in general?
It was a lot easier than I think we both thought it would be. We were surrounded by professionals like yourself and a few others that helped us make that decision. It was a lot easier, and they helped negotiate the deal for us. That was something that we wouldn't be able to do on our own terms. We couldn't be happier. Seriously, we are extremely happy.
Great.
You could not imagine. And to top it off, there is one regret that we do have, and it's the fact that I wish we would have done this a lot sooner.
Great. Well, I got to tell you what, it's never too late. I think we have someone calling in the line. Hello, you're on the air.
Hi, I have a question about the $8,000 tax credit for first-time buyers.
Okay. Go ahead.
How long will that last?
The tax credit, you have to settle on a property by November 30th of this year. Now, we as agents, as realtors, are pushing to try to get an extension. Congress right now is talking about a potential 6-month extension, but that is not anything that we can depend on at this moment. So right now, the best advice would be to talk to a realtor and try to see if you can purchase a property before the $8,000 tax credit expires.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Thanks for calling. There's another caller on the line? Okay, thanks. You're on the air. Hello?
Hi, Jamie. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm great. Hey, congratulations to GRIP for having the first BCTV show.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that.
Absolutely. Hey, question for you. First-time home buyers, how long do they typically stay in their first home before they were to upgrade into a future home? Is it a couple of years that you would recommend? What's the typical time frame?
A typical time frame, it really depends on your market. In this market, we are fortunate because Berks County as a whole has seen gains basically across the board. I would say that the average homeowner, the average first-time buyer, probably stays in their house for at least 3 to 4 years. Typical would probably be 5 to 7 years. It just depends on that individual homeowner's lifestyle. Sometimes people buy their first home single. Other times they buy it as a family. So obviously if you bought it single and you got married or you had children and you were looking for a larger home, then that would put you on the market sooner than it would maybe someone who bought something that was closer to what they needed the first time around. So generally speaking, I would say that a first-time buyer stays in their property for a period between 5 and 7 years.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
No problem. Thanks for calling. And now back to Leslie.
In our next segment, we are joined by numerous spiritual leaders in the Greater Reading area. Scott Kramer of Glad Tidings, Jeff Raffoff of West Lawn United, Kathy Napolitana of Sacred Heart Church, and Mike Cowker of the Reading Berks Conference of Churches. They've joined us to answer a number of questions that are on the minds of young professionals, such as what is religion, what's the difference between religion and spirituality, and can you be spiritual without being religious, and how do we fit it all into our busy lives? So here's what they had to say. Before the show started, both Pastor Jeff and Scott were talking about this concept of unchristian. Can you, from both of your perspectives, share a little bit about some of the findings of that book and what made you compelled to not only read it but then share it with people?
In fact, Pastor Scott had mentioned prior to taping about the book Unchristian by David Kenneman, and I read it last year, and it really changed my way of understanding how young adults perceive spirituality and how we can help them to connect with their own spirituality, connect with God through the activities of the church, not necessarily in traditional ways.
Sure, I can start with that. I'm still in the middle of reading it. I'm almost finished with it, and actually we're doing a teaching series in our young adult ministry on the book. What they found as they surveyed and polled people from all over the country in all age brackets, but really focusing on the 18 to 29-year-olds, they found that there are certain things that Christians do, that people of a church do in the way we act and the way we speak and the way we talk to them, that actually prevent them from even considering Christianity as a possible source of spirituality in their lives.
Like what?
There were 6 categories they give that were too judgmental, that Christians can be hypocritical, that they can be motivated by only getting people saved, as they would say, that were anti-homosexual. There were 2 others that are slipping my mind right now. But out of the 6 categories, that basically what their hypothesis is, or their thesis is, that Christianity has a perception problem, that a lot of people in the world who aren't yet in a church or aren't even religious or spiritual won't even consider Christianity because they don't like Christians, because of those 6 perceptions they have about Christianity. And so it's a very informative thing for, I think, every pastor in the country should read it, because that's what the younger generations are thinking and saying about Christianity, and it's vital for us to understand how they think and what they think, so that we can communicate our message in an effective way, that it can be received and heard, not just rejected. So, Jeff, would you like to comment on that?
As you mentioned, it's a perception problem because reading the book, it helps us understand that young people in both inside and outside of the church are not excited about admitting their faith if they're inside the church, and don't want to be a part of it if they're on the outside. They see Christianity identified more as what we're against than what we're for, which is a sad commentary to me. But it's helped me at least, and some others I know, to rethink how we want to reach out into the community, how we want to help introduce people. When I grew up, it was come to Jesus, and you come to the altar, and I'm not knocking that, but what we've discovered is what is much more effective as we've tried to reach out to young adults is to find affinities with them, whether it's helping them to be a good parent of young children, or particularly in terms of service projects, Habitat for Humanity here locally. Young adults have thrived on going on the mission trips that we've sponsored to the Gulf Coast and around the country and around the world. Those are ways that we can make a difference in the world right now, and I think young people in particular, but everybody wants to make a difference in the world. And so we're focusing on the things that they want, the things they embrace, the things we agree on. And through those experiences, we hope eventually to share what motivates me and others like me in my church to do that, which is because God has loved me and we want to share that love with others, and we've experienced that love through Jesus Christ. But the book and the perception problem has helped us to rethink how we reach out to others and how we make a connection with them. It's not they have to come to us on our terms, but we want to reach out to them on the things that matter to them.
I see. Okay, great. Thank you. And we actually posed to a number of GRIP members the question of, do you need to be religious to be spiritual? And resoundingly, people said they didn't think so. They thought it was possible to have spirituality in their lives. There were a couple, I don't know, which is fair enough, honest answer. But can you, from your perspective, being in many different forms of organized religion, can you answer that question for us? Can you talk to us a little bit about that, maybe, Mike, since you have a cross-section of all the denominations? If you can
stab at that.
talk a little bit about that, that would be great. Thanks.
It's a lot of perception. Religion itself, even within the church, can conjure up a negative feeling, because even throughout history, religion can tend to come off as not being very spiritual, as being wrapped around doctrine, if you will, or rules and laws, versus expressing your faith. So there's a lot of hesitancy to really use the word religion, I think, even within the church, and say religious. It's more of expressing your faith and building a relationship with God and focusing on relationship versus a huge amount of rules and laws that kind of distract you from that relationship.
I see. Okay, great. Thank you.
You know, what we see a lot with our young families is coming back of people who maybe had a period of time in their life when they stepped away, and would say, well, I was spiritual, but I wasn't religious. And I'm gathering you probably heard that, or got some of that in your surveys. And we find that as they have children, they embrace, more what you might call traditional religion. And those things that gave them comfort as a child, they embrace on their own. Certainly the church of the 21st century, the Catholic Church of the 21st century, is changing. Its face is changing. Schools, we change. Our school has a fairly good-sized percentage of non-Catholic families that are there, yet the religious aspect of our school is why they choose it. There is that the structure, and yet the openness, and when you come right down to it, it's all about Jesus, in our case, and having that element, in school with us, and having him present with us every day. So for us, spirituality and religion I can't separate them, in my faith. They are all tied up. It's all one piece, one big piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
I'll just throw in one last comment. I would definitely agree with all of the comments that have been spoken about. Religion oftentimes is viewed as a set of rules and standards by which I must follow, or else I'm not approved of the divine being or whoever you believe in. Spirituality, I think, it depends on how you define these terms, because I think anything that's not of the natural world is of the spiritual world. And so when you say people think that they can be spiritual without being religious, well, I think they can, because in the way that you define religion, it's following a set of rules or doctrines or dogmas or whatever, whereas spirituality is believing in something beyond what my eye can see and what my senses can tell me is real. There's many people in our world that don't believe that anything exists beyond what can be proven scientifically. But the spiritual would say, a person who says they're spiritual would say, they would recognize or acknowledge that something beyond what my eyes can see might exist. And I think that's the beginning. Even acknowledging that acknowledgement is the beginning of a journey that a person hopefully would be on to meet. In our case, from Christian Church, we would want them to, find Jesus in all of that. For others, it might be another place, but we would certainly want to introduce people to Jesus Christ and as the ultimate of spiritual truth.
So thanks for tuning in to our pilot episode of GRIP on BCTV. If you're interested in getting more involved with the Greater Reading Young Professionals, definitely come join us for our next event on October 6th at Viva Tapas Lounge, the newly renovated space for our Legislative Impact Committee event, or the League of Women Voters Wine and Cheese reception, Wednesday, October 14th, or an evening at the Reading Public Museum, Thursday, October 22nd. All of the details can be found on our website at www.greaterreadingyp.org, or always feel free to call us or email us at grip gryponbctv@gmail.com. That's gryponbctv@gmail.com. Thanks so much and have a great night.